My name is Mark Tagal. When we originally got this grant, we were with IBSS. We did about 2/3 of our presentation under that banner, and then with the change of administration, there were some changes, and we finished up as Tagal Oceanic. But we still have a great working relationship with IBSS, and they really helped out with this grant, which you can see a little bit later on. Our project was Tied to Table, Farm to Food, the Merroir of ocean farm seafoods. Our goal was to promote aquaculture literacy by showing seafood consumers around here just what foods were cultured. We wanted to use that experience to enhance the overall dining experience and in some ways promote ocean stewardship. Next slide. So we were going to do this by using the concept of Merroir as a tool to describe the factors of ocean farm seafoods. A lot of times you will hear Merroir as it applies to oysters, but we went ahead and expanded it to cover just about any farm seafood. And ultimately you can describe any seafood with kind of this Merroir wheel. We wanted to show consumers how the quality of your seafood can be shaped by sense of place. We wanted to use the farming tradition to give aquaculture social license. And we were fortunate enough to have a really diverse group of industry partners. So we had a lot of different seafoods to choose from. We had oyster specific producers up here in the Northwest. We had finfish producers in Hawaii. The more the talks went on, the more people just kind of through word of mouth jumped on the bandwagon, and we were able to get, mussel farmers and seaweed farmers and different oyster farmers. And so we were able to really describe a lot of different kinds of seafood. When there would be times when we'd be describing oysters from different farms, or other events would be different species of clams grown in similar environments. How you could use these understandings of where the seafoods came from to like how you would apply it to what you would be cooking. Next slide. So we did this by targeting a seafood audiences, like people that were already kind of somewhat familiar with seafood, but may not know where it came from. And so we went right for culinary professionals first and foremost. But then it kind of morphed into students. And we had students ranging from grade schoolers to high school classes, and then ultimately to college level culinary students. We altered our talks depending on the age level. When it comes to exploring the subtleties and flavor and salinity and brininess or the firmness of mussel, that might be kind of over the heads of some 11-year-olds. So what we did with them is we recreated a shellfish farm, and based on the farming style, would this be like an oyster to make a sandwich with, or would this be an oyster to go on the half shell? When we took it to the general public, we would meet up with them in public aquariums or grocery stores, and we would talk about the subtleties of seafood. And then with culinary students, we tried to expose them to as many different ingredients as we could. We wanted to arm them with a tool to not only help them decide how they were going to prepare the seafood and how they could best let some of the characteristics of the seafood shine through, but as a tool to explain the seafood to their customers and then overall connect the two of them together. We wanted to have transparency in farming practices in the sense of any negative connotations about aquaculture. Hopefully we could wipe those away. We also wanted to show a lot of people, especially when it comes to shellfish, that look, your shellfish are eating the wild and farmed. They're eating the same foods. They're living in the same waters. They're almost harvested the same way. And just really exposing that to the people. Next slide. So what started out as, this is kind of a boring slide, but what started out as 4 events quickly snowballed into over 24 events with a 500% increase over the plan. We did that all on the same budget. That is tremendous help from our industry partners by donating a lot of the food that we originally started purchasing, and tremendous help from IBSS allowing me the time to keep going. And well, we're going to go do another presentation and go do another presentation. So it was originally just going to be 2 schools, and then we would go on, and someone that attended an event said, "Hey, I am part of a homeschool collective. Would you like to come and talk to us?" Or a representative from like the city of Des Moines Parks and Recreation said, "Hey, we have an event. This sounds like it'd be a really good fit." So it just kept snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. But one of our biggest and kind of funnest success stories, next slide, please, was the Bonnie Lake High School's culinary cooking team. So these were one of our original education partners, and we were going to go over there and we were going to talk about the Merroir of oysters and a finfish that was produced by the Sklallam tribe here in Washington called sablefish. And the Sklallam tribe invited students to come out to the farm. We got to go see how the fish was raised. We got to harvest the fish. They processed it. We brought it back. Their teacher, Chef Kahaliahina, developed a recipe for his classroom. And I kind of thought that's where it was going to stop. We'd go to the class, we'd talk about the fish, we'd eat it, and that would be that. But the Bonnie Lake Culinary High School cooking competition team is just that, a competition team. So they took this dish and they took it on the road. The first one that we went to was a citywide competition. It was part of the Washington State Chefs Association. They took first place for the high school division, but they took third place in the open division. And so that's against professional kitchens, casino restaurants, and they took third in that. And so the dish was great. The whole on this particular competition, you had to talk about the concept of how you came up with the dish, and there was a greeting line which we were fortunate enough to be invited to be a part of. And I'm going to pat ourselves on the back, but we had the biggest line that night of the competition. We sold out. We had chefs from the Chef Association who saw that then in turn invited us to the annual Chef Association meeting to re-give the talk. The next step for those guys was a state competition where they took first place in it, and they modified it slightly. And so the sablefish dish traveled from Seattle, Washington, took first place in Spokane, Washington. At that point, we started gaining a little bit more attention. NOAA did a feature story for their website on the fish. Some of the students were interviewed for an article. They were invited to the National Pro Start Cooking Competition, which took place in Maryland, and they placed in the top 20 in the nation. So they actually placed 18th, beating out more than 200 other cooking competitions. So we could not be more proud of the kids at Bonnie Lake and how far they took this dish. The Sklallam tribe at Jamestown Seafoods was also extremely supportive of this effort, flying out harvested sablefish for the competition the day before so they would have fresh product to work with when they arrived on the East Coast. So next slide. So, what's next for us? We're continuing to build momentum with everyone. We already have a pretty full roster with all of the cooking colleges for the 25-26 academic year. We're going to go through, and hopefully with support from our previous industry partners, we're going to do a couple lessons on shellfish and clams. One of the more unique events that we did at the tail end of the grant period was we were invited to a private supper club, and we cooked a 6-course Merroir meal. And so there are some other supper clubs that have approached us and asked us like, "Oh, could you do this?" There's more grocery stores that have asked us to come out and profile or come out and talk to their consumers. Farms are coming out and asking us to profile their farms so we can include them in the talks. We were looking at some grant opportunities to develop a cookbook where now that we've worked with all these culinary professionals and students, come up with a cookbook that's going to pair a chef with a farm and come out with a recipe featuring and showcasing the kind of Merroir highlights of the seafood that was produced at that farm. And then I think in the month of October, we are going to be working with NOAA for the Seafood Month celebration. So we're going to talk about kind of what we did with Merroir and how it influences seafood. And so by developing this kind of Merroir wheel, we found it's a really great way to describe aquaculture related seafoods and inform people about it and make it not so scary. One of the greatest things that we had at one of the supper club meetings is one of the guests came up and said, I had no idea any of these things were farmed. They were delicious. What else should I try? And so we hope to build on it with that. So right now we are operating as Tagal Oceanic, but we have a great working relationship still with IBSS. And we're just looking for people to kind of take this to the next level. So are there any questions?
Excellent, Mark. And Mark and his wife, Lisa, have been super dedicated to this project throughout all the challenges and send us beautiful photos and videos of delicious food and amazing happenings all the time. So you all have been a joy to work with. Any questions?
I just like that. I have Lisa over here like whispering prompts in my ear. She said, make sure you thank Tanoia for all the help that you give us whenever we have our difficulties. And Brianna Shaughnessy. And,
yes, thanks to everybody.
And everybody at IBSS. So
you are most welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, with that, congratulations, grantees.